Um, Welcome to the Committee of the Whole of the City of Fergus Falls City Council. It's March 29th, and we'll call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Joe.
Here.
Bonnie.
Here.
Rupert.
Here.
Kramer.
Here.
Thompson is absent. Rachel.
Here.
Hicks is absent. And Pitch.
Here.
We have a quorum. First item this morning is the Gate City Bank Neighborhood Improvement Program presentation. We have our friends from Gate City Banks. We'll welcome them this morning.
Good morning. My name is Brett DeLage. I'm the retail manager with Gate City Bank. A cornerstone of Gate City Bank's mission is to serve our customers and communities by creating a better way of life. Today, I'll discuss how the Neighborhood Impact Program offered by Gate City Bank does just that. The Neighborhood Impact Program is a series of programs designed to work together to improve neighborhood quality of life and encourage investment in the city's existing neighborhoods. Since 2003, Gate City Bank is proud to have been involved in this program throughout various communities across North Dakota and central Minnesota. Gate City Bank's investment in the program has made significant impact on the city's efforts to maintain affordable housing and keep neighborhoods fresh. The City of Fergus Falls Neighborhood Impact Program was established for local homeowners to encourage the preservation of homes, add to the long-term value of life to the property and neighborhood. We are extremely grateful to continue and renew this relationship with Fergus Falls for the Neighborhood Impact Program. Brian had handed out some sheets for you guys to review for just various guidelines, and I will throw it to Brian here. He is our personal loan officer.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for your time. Yes, Gate City Bank, we have several products. This one is definitely one of my favorites. We have an ever-flowing product, this Neighborhood Impact Improvement Program. For example, 2020, the cap on this program was $75,000. We know that things change in our environment, things are more expensive. We've updated that to the max of $100,000. So we know that things can change and this program changes with it. So thank you again for allowing us to continue this program with Fergus Falls. Should there be any questions on the product, please reach me at Gate City Bank.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And maybe after the meeting, we can present the check. You want to present the check now?
Yes.
I'm kind of under strict orders not to go down there very much, but when you got a check for $1 million, I'll come down. I don't think anybody can give you orders. One person I can think of.
Got up for a reason, right? Ready? All right, ready?
Thank you.
That pretty slide showing in the background. Make it look like spring.
All right, we're gonna skip by number 2 for now because I think Buzz Lundeen is gonna join us for that conversation. So we will go to our Chief of Public Safety, Kyle Berggren. Good morning, Kyle.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council. I appreciate the time this morning. I'm going to talk about 2 of the items together. I'll ask for the resolution separately, but the Community Service Officer and the Tuition Reimbursement Program really kind of go hand in hand, and they're a recruitment tool for us. When I started on the police department back in '95, there's probably 250 to 300 applicants for, I think at that time, 3 openings. The last time we advertised the position last fall, we had 0. And we're not alone. Agencies across not only Minnesota, but really across the nation are having that same problem. We have been changing the way that we go out and recruit. We've been doing a lot more active recruiting at colleges and universities, and we're learning things along the way. And one of the things is that we have to capture people a lot earlier in their educational process in order to recruit them to our organization. And the other thing I think that we're seeing is for lack of a better phrase, we have to start looking at more of a homegrown workforce. And this community service officer program allows us to do that. When we were out recruiting, we found 4 individuals. They still have about a year and a half left of schooling, but they all are either from Fergus Falls or live within about a 20-mile radius of Fergus Falls. So this is, an ideal program for them. Gives them an opportunity to work for our organization. It gives us a chance. So it allows them to see what the community is like, what the agency is like. It also allows us the opportunity to kind of take a look at them in a non-traditional way instead of just an application or an interview. So those 4 positions that we're asking for, I think, is going to help us achieve some really good recruits. The second part of it is the tuition reimbursement. So currently the city's policy applies to full-time employees. We've been kind of working through this, and really the reimbursement part is almost like kind of like the GI Bill. So if you sign on with our organization, you give us 2 years, we're going to give you maybe $2,000 to help pay for your educational costs. If you give us 4 years, it's up to $5,000. So we want to help them. We want to attract them to our organization, and by signing that commitment, I think once they become members of our agency, see what the community and the agency have to offer, we're hoping that they have buy-in and that we're keeping these people long-term. So that's kind of the essence of those 2 programs in a nutshell. So the first resolution in front of you is for the hiring of up to 4 CSOs. I'm estimating a cost of about $20,000 for that. We currently have an open position. We have another retirement that's occurring this year as well. So just through attrition, we're going to have more than enough money to cover this cost that wasn't in our budget. So that's what I'm asking for in the first resolution, is authorization to hire those CSOs.
Thanks, Chief. Someone
I
like
will
to-
offer that,
Jim?
Your Honor.
Like to say-
Second that.
Question I have, Chief, have you seen this? It sounds like obviously a logical, great plan to get from the community. I mean, that's what I think makes our force successful and engaging with the community. Have other communities looked at similar approaches?
Sure. A lot of, down in the metro, obviously they have, financially far more resources than we do as a smaller community. So this program or similar programs are in play down in the metro, in a lot of the suburban departments. I work in St. Paul. Even back in the 90s, they had programs similar to this. It was more towards maybe like you'd be hired as a parking enforcement officer or a park ranger, employed with the city of St. Paul, and then eventually move your way into a police officer position. So nothing new that way, but for an agency our size and in greater Minnesota,
Yeah.
it's a little bit more challenging for us. But I think now is the time to really embrace this opportunity. So
Thanks, Chief. Anyone else have any questions?
Just got one. I like the idea of getting recruiting the people from our area. Back 40 years ago or 45 when I was a youngster, we had a lot of officers that were from Fergus that were but the training, of course, isn't there like it used to be. But I mean, it is now like it before. But it was a great thing to have somebody that you kind of recognize, and of course, it was a better, easier feel for the people, I think, to find somebody locally.
yeah, no, I think right now about 25% of our officers, grew up in town. Another 25% are like me, were maybe an hour from Fergus. But I would say probably 80% of the officers come from communities of our size or smaller. We have people from as far as Albert Lee and the Cloquet area, but I think to Scott's point, people that kind of grew up in a smaller community and have those same community values are really a good fit for us, and I can't say enough good things about the staff that we have. So
I agree 100%. It's a great thing.
All right, we've got a motion and a second to bring this to the council on Monday night. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. All right, Chief, you got also the tuition reimbursement program.
Yep. So the second action is for a resolution supporting what we're calling the Pathways to Policing program and the amendments to the tuition reimbursement policy of the city. So again, just looking for a recommendation for that.
To the council. We can do that through a motion this morning.
Make a motion.
Thank you,
I'll
Al.
second it.
Thank you, Scott. Any further questions for Chief Bergeron? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries as well. And a couple more from Chief Bergeron, Public Safety Officer, Wellness Plan and Policy.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. So there's been a lot of discussion in the last few years about officer wellness, both in the police and the fire service. A lot of the programs in our wellness plan have been around for 30 years or more. We've had employees assistance program for decades. We've had crisis debriefings, professional services through psychologists. We've had fitness program in different forms over the years. But in the last couple years, the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust, they provide our liability insurance. They provide our workers' comp insurance. They've really been pushing cities to come up with a comprehensive policy. So a lot of what's in there is nothing new. We just had to put it together in a formalized wellness policy. There are a few things that are new, and I'll just point those out quickly. One is our wellness leave. When we initiated this program this policy back in 2021, originally called that a sabbatical program. If you get the League of Minnesota Cities magazine, there's an article in there this issue about the city of Painesville, Minnesota, being one of the first to implement a program like that. And really, we're not giving our staff anything more than other employees of the city are receiving as far as time. It's just that we're recognizing that the type of stress and issues that police officers face is a little bit different, and we have to allow them to use that time in a different manner. And then the last thing that's maybe a little bit newer is in the last page of the policy. It has to do with mindfulness, and just a lot of good research out there recently. And again, a lot of these things aren't anything new. Mindfulness, spirituality, could be anything from meditation, participation in different religious programs. We have to be a little bit careful being a government entity with that, but I think everybody understands the whole concept of you have to have a connection, spiritually, in some form or another. So again, there's nothing too new about this program. There's a lot of legislation that's going through both the House and the Senate at this time pertaining to this type of information. And I think it's just best that we get council to recognize and approve this policy, and then also to allow me to change this policy, because I think a lot of times department policies are living documents that constantly have to be evolving. But there's some mandates that have happened in the last couple of years, and I just think it's important maybe now that we bring it before the council and get your stamp of approval on it as well as we continue to move forward on this process. So that's all I'm asking for is a resolution approving the wellness policy.
Thanks, Chief. We can recommend that to the council on Monday night. Thanks. Scott?
I'll offer that.
Thank you, Scott.
I'll second.
Thanks, Jim. Any questions? Chief Berglund, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. One last one.
Promise this will make this one. This is the easiest one.
It's Burger and Show Day.
Yeah. It's probably more than anybody has to put up with, I'll tell you. So this, we're just declaring surplus property. 3 vehicles there that it's just part of our normal rotation to rotate out our squad cars and get new squad cars. And then the only addition is we have some miscellaneous office chairs that we'll be putting up for sale on some kind of public forum. So just looking at a resolution declaring the following items as surplus.
I'll offer the honor, then I have a question for the chief.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Chief, have you looked at all into in the future replacing some vehicles with electric vehicles?
We have. So there's a lot of going on right now, of course, with electric vehicles, and a lot of that is, being pushed by, I think California was probably one of the bigger impetuses for moving to electric. And I think Ford, when it comes to traditional police vehicles, Ford has come out with a hybrid police utility vehicle. Wasn't real successful, and I think that they have discontinued that. But they're also looking at the Ford pickup, the F-150.
Oh,
They
yeah.
offer that in a police package, but the electric version of that is not currently offered. So I think it's just a matter of time. So a lot of the electric vehicles that you'd buy on the civilian market, they're just not built currently to be able to take all the dings and the hardships that police vehicles typically go under. So a lot of places have tried them. They haven't had a lot of successes, but I do think that that's going to naturally be the future for our vehicles. It's just what we're seeing is it's not here quite yet, but I think within the next few years we will see either some type of a hybrid vehicle or an all-electric vehicle, just
Well,
as
and
the market.
I've read articles from various departments across the country that have purchased, for instance, Teslas, and and have been quite happy with them.
Yeah, I think some of the articles that I've read, if you get into southern states, they're probably a little bit. The reviews are a little bit better. I know that there was one agency in Minnesota that had a Tesla, and again, I don't think it quite hit the marks that they were hoping for. But like I said, I think it's just technology advances, and there's just a lot that goes into. Like I know it looks like a Ford Explorer, but they changed the suspension in the vehicles for policing.
Yep.
Transmissions, engines. So there's a lot of different components that are changed out between a police vehicle and a civilian market vehicle. But we've looked at other vehicles in the past, and that's something that maybe we can look at as more for like our investigative or administrative vehicles is maybe trying them there. But for our regular squads, I think eventually we'll get there. But I think the automakers got to work out some bugs
Sure.
too for the police market.
Yeah, I would just encourage you to,
Mhm.
pursue those opportunities, and we can put locally produced solar power into them, so
Sure.
that's kind of nice.
Yep. No,
But
I
yeah,
agree.
thanks, appreciate it.
You bet.
Jim?
Do they get enough speed out of an electric vehicle for like a chase?
Oh
Yeah, they're very fast.
Oh yeah,
An electric vehicle accelerates.
it's
A
amazing.
gas combustion engine can't even compete
Okay.
with
Yeah,
it
it's-
because it's just an instant speed. So the only problem is,
You
I
run
would
the
say, is
tires on
range.
it.
Yeah, the faster you go, the quicker you're depleting the
Jim.
battery. So,
Yeah.
Jim, go
Well,
ahead. Oh.
warmer weather though, you're talking about down south, warmer weather is gonna be much better for these vehicles than the cold
Sure,
weather up
yeah.
here.
yeah,
And
just
I went to work this morning and I went in the freezer to warm up. so-
yeah. Yeah, Mother Nature certainly hasn't been kind to us. and we
Yeah,
have
after
to-
my private testing on a closed track, I can tell you that
80, 40
Tesla will catch anything out there.
Yeah, no, they are definitely got some speed.
Thanks,
so.
Chief. So we have a motion to bring the surplus vehicles to the council on Monday night. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Next item up for discussion is the surface water assessment. We'll call on our Public Works Director, Guy Taylor. Morning, Guy.
Good morning. Thank you, Your Honor. Arguably, the two most important things that we do for the city is provide safe, quality drinking water, and then we get rid of that water. So our intake at the east end of the city at the Wright Lake Water Plant is managed by Chad Lindgren back here. He, along with his staff, they do a great job providing us that great water. And this morning, we're going to go through an assessment that was done by a partnership with the Minnesota Department of Health and Braun Intertech. We have our local partner here from the Department of Health office, Dan Disrud. He's going to go through the surface water assessment, and it'll just give you an idea of what we do, what our catch area is for surface water that comes into Hoot Lake, Wright Lake, and then into our plant, and what we need to do to protect that. So,
Thanks,
Dan
Guy.
Disford, thank you.
Morning, Dan. Welcome.
Thank you. Let's give it a try here. Okay. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Dan Disrud. I'm a source water protection planner. I'm assigned to what my boss has called the Northwest District, so Otter Tail County and 17 other counties up kind of in the northwest corner of the state. Again, in 2003, well, it's not going to work here. Okay.
Let me know when I.
Sure. Okay, thanks. So in 2003, Minnesota Department of Health prepared a report that kind of demonstrated where Fergus Falls drinking water quality, where the water comes from, priority areas for protection, and potential sources of contamination. In 2017, go ahead, money and work was appropriated by the legislature for MDH to do updates. So source water assessment update is intended to set the stage for developing what is called a SWIP, a surface water intake protection plan. So in 2021, as mentioned, Minnesota Department of Health contracted with Braun Intertech, which was kind of new for us to work with a contractor to develop the scientific work in developing that source water assessment. And 2022 invitations went out to identified partners for a series of meetings that were held via Teams at that time to exchange information needed to determine where your water comes from, the water quality information, and identify those priority areas. And again, participants were the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, the DNR, Department of Agriculture, your local soil and water conservation districts, Bowser, and obviously the city. Go ahead. So what we came up with is 4 delineated areas. The source water assessment area is typically, if you're used to those watershed subunits, it would be a Huck 8. And anything upstream of Wright Lake intake would be considered that source water assessment area, which was really good as far as the timing with the one watershed, one plan development that was going on at that time. So the partners were already engaged with that, and again, we brought some of these concerns to those meetings. Go ahead. So besides the source water assessment area, there's 3 other nested areas that have been delineated. One is being the DWSMA, the Drinking Water Supply Management Area, which is, again, if you're looking at those watershed units, it would be the Huck 12 plus other considerations. And it really is focusing on the long-term health impacts of non-point pollution sources getting into your drinking water. So again, so that is depicted by the kind of the yellow area, that DWSMA. The blue area is what was delineated as the spill management area. Again, typically that's going to be a 24-hour time of travel to your intake, plus some other considerations. And then you have the red area that is delineated as your emergency response area. That would be, again, typically an 8-hour time of travel to get to your intake, plus some other considerations. Go ahead. So the city is effectively treating the water to keep it safe for human consumption. You know, there's some seasonal and incident impacts that to the water quality that Chad is monitoring all the time and impacts those treatment needs. Again, land use varies in the area that we're have delineated as where your water is coming from you know, urban development to cultivated crops to forested areas, and each uniquely impacts the water quality. So again, a potential contaminant source inventory was developed, kind of organized, whether it was a point source contamination concern versus a non-point contamination source. Point source would be those known contaminated lands, things that, you know, maybe a failing septic system. Non-point being just kind of, you know, again, fertilizer use and, you know, maybe even your parks if there was some herbicides or pesticides that are used. We also are, you know, again, kind of charged to take a look at those erratic weather patterns and how that's going to be impacting what to anticipate for the future. So again, the high priority obviously was that blue and the red area, that spill management area, the emergency response area, really looking at the chemical releases, taking a look at, you know, bridge, road, and railroad crossings over the rivers as far as, you know, what could happen, kind of like the Delaware River and what Philadelphia is kind of dealing with. So kind of looking at some of the needs as far as urban planning, encouraging best management practices as far as erosion and fertilizer use. Go ahead. So indicators of point source and non-point source contamination monitoring needs will continue, and that's kind of described in the assessment. The need for spill prevention and developing emergency plans is described in that assessment. Stormwater outlets to Hoot Lake and Wright Lake, and where they drain to, you know, and kind of looking at, you know, outreach to the residents that are around there as far as kind of being good stewards and knowing what's going down their drain. Taking a look at the needs as far as how the city is going to respond to maybe a large fuel spill. Taking a look at boat landings, you know, kind of what kind of threat that might be as far as if people are fueling boats at the landing. And we understand that the city has a 3 to 4 day storage, as well as, again, the option of using the well for emergency type situations. But really what we're hoping for is the city to take action as far as to accept the assessment, kind of give the thumbs up for us to take the next steps in developing that SWIP, that surface source water protection intake protection plan. Fergus Falls, again, in a very good position compared to some of the other surface water users, as far as there's a lot of buffer natural protections that are in place. Great relationship with Otter Tail Power as far as the controls of the dams and work with them. Go ahead. The source water assessment, again, like I said, really is used for information to continue on with that intake protection plan. And in that intake protection plan, we'll be looking to identify and prioritize activities that are reasonable for the city to protect the drinking water source. Again, most of those areas that have been delineated, as you saw, outside the city's jurisdiction. So it's about partnerships, describing how local partners can help, and again, examine if anticipated changes that are expected for the community, what can be anticipated as far as the change in issues and needs related to the water supply. Go ahead. So again, we're going to expand on the priority issues identified in the source water assessment. In the SWIP, we're going to develop a goal statement that will be supported by identified implementation activities, which we call management strategies, which are typically, a lot of outreach, additional data collection, again, those potential contaminant source, controls, land use issues that are related to that, and again, encouraging a lot of BMPs related to some of the feedlots or whatever else is found out there. So again, besides the Minnesota Department of Health, again, if we develop that intake protection plan, it makes you eligible for Minnesota Department of Health's implementation and competitive grants. But really the biggest bang for the buck is if this is approved, some of those are partners that have been identified. They will be able to use the plan to justify other larger Bowser type grants that are out there that will have multiple benefits, but again, benefiting the community of Fergus Falls and their drinking water supply. Go ahead. Yeah, I think Danielle and Derek, the intention was that they're going to join us here through Teams virtually. They are in St. Paul. Most of my work in the Northwest area is, continue to be working with you as far as your wellhead protection plan, but most of your neighbors, it's groundwater that they're using. I will be your point of contact for the development of that SWIP that we described. But Derek and Danielle, they are the two people when we're talking about the legislature appropriating money. They're dedicated to source water or surface water sources, which makes your community unique. And they wanted to be here to answer any questions. They'll continue to be resources because they'll be specialized and really know how your plan compares to others. But that's your team there. So I will hold for any questions. Obviously work through Guy and Chad, and I'll continue to be there for you.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Dan. And Guy, you mentioned it. Chad, thank you. You and your team. There's a lot of employees within the Public Works Department that work hard every day that provide the services that we probably sometimes take for granted. So thanks, Guy and Chad, for your work.
Thank you, Your Honor. So yes, just looking for a resolution to accept the source water assessment, and then we will come back to you when we're to the point of doing the SWIP and identify funding sources and move forward in that.
Thanks. So we can have a motion to bring this to the council on Monday night for approval? The assessment?
All of that?
Thanks, Tom.
I've got a couple questions.
Yeah, thanks, Scott.
Second.
Go ahead, please.
In the agencies that were mentioned, as far as who you've worked with the Minnesota Department of Health, you didn't mention Otter Tail County, but in the other counties that would be neighboring too. So as long as we're talking about the other agencies that would be included, wouldn't it be prudent to include those counties as well?
Yes, absolutely. Again, mentioned, yes, the soil and water conservation districts are, kind of their own entity. But again, Otter Tail Land Management has, like previously mentioned with the One Watershed, One Plan, fully engaged with it. I think when we had those teams meetings, they did dial in early, but they did rely on the SWCDs for providing most of that technical expertise. But they were included as far as review. And I don't know, Guy, if you had any more to expand on that. But.
No, for sure they've been included all along.
Okay. And one other just a detail on the document that we got, it would be page 23 of the source water assessment. There's a paragraph referring to, the increases in temperature and how things have been tracking over time. And the last statement in this paragraph reads, these higher temperatures will drive increased evaporation rates and could lead to less flow available for supply. There will always be variability in weather, but over time, the increases in precipitation, PDSI, low and high temperatures will continue. And I think that's an assumption that we can't make. If it may continue, or it will likely continue, if you want to give it that kind of a subjective statement, I would go with that. But to just assume that temperatures will continue. 3 months ago, nobody thought we'd wake up to below zero temperatures on March 29th. And I don't think we can say that that's going to be the case forever. So as this is a draft, I would suggest that that be revised. And then the last statement, I guess, is as we look at surface water, obviously that's been our main source all these times, but as you look to what could happen and what might happen, as a city, we probably need to look at wells and what we're going to do to put another well in the ground, or maybe more than one, so that we've got the supply we need that's really dependable in the future in case something happens on the surface. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Tom?
I will respectfully offer my counterpoint to Councilmember Kwame's first point. I think more than likely we can plan on extreme weather events becoming more extreme with the progression of climate change, and that I would say that we should plan for the worst. And I always tell people, hey, if I'm wrong about climate change, boy, I hope so. But if I'm not, we're going to be up the creek. So I would just make the counterpoint to that I think it's something we really need to plan for.
Thanks, Tom. Any other questions of Dan or Guy or Chad? Let's see, do we get we have a motion to bring this to the council, right? Okay, got it. Questions? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Guy. Thanks, Chad. Andrew, do you have any other agenda items to come before the committee this morning?
Jump back up to number 2 here.
Oh, that's right, we didn't, and we don't have our guest, but we'll turn it over for the Oak Grove Cemetery discussion. Andrew, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, honored council members. I was expecting a few friends here this morning, but certainly versed enough to be able to accomplish what we need to. Buzz Lundeen, Steve Emerson, and Rod Berg have been very good partners. They are the ones that are in charge of Oak Grove Cemetery, and they've been meeting with city staff over the last several months about this expansion. I will also note Buzz has been very dedicated to this effort. Bill Sonmore, who's been with the city for almost 30 years, made a comment to me last week that Buzz has approached him every single year about this topic, so it doesn't fall off our radar and it doesn't ever get lost in the shuffle of things that we do. But now the Oak Grove Cemetery has decided now is the time that they want to make the official request. It's been on our radar for almost 30 years, but what they're asking of the city is for us to gift them 5 acres of land. It's, as you can see on the map here on the screen, it's directly north of the existing cemetery. You can see some of the headstones there at the bottom of that picture. The parcel boundaries are kind of dictated by the fact that we have a water main running on it'd be west side or the left side of the map. You can't see it, but there's a purple line if you're looking at your packet that marks that water line, which we miss by the parcel boundary here. So this is what they're looking at doing. They had Anderson Land Surveying lay out what it could look like. It's about 1,200 lots that they're lots, I guess. Is that the right term? I don't know what the plots. There you go. I look at the
Graves.
Graves. 1,200 people can be fit.
Well, they're
in
gonna
this
live there for a while. so
It's permanent real estate.
So excuse me for my my lack of correctness there, but anyway, the request is that the city would donate this property to them so they are covered for several years into the future for their expansion of this space. This is the only non-denominational public cemetery that we have in the city, so ultimately, statutorily, it becomes the city's responsibility if the association doesn't exist, so it's good to keep them happy. It's good to be good partners. They've done a wonderful job maintaining that. They've been forward-thinking and looking into the future, as evidenced by the 30-year conversation around this. And if the council's ready to move forward, we can accomplish that by a resolution on Monday night. We'll get all the appropriate documents put together and go through the legal process of getting that ownership transferred.
Thank you, Andrew. And I know, like you said, I think Steve and Buzz have talked to all of us. They've done a good job. They've obviously done their homework. They care passionately about this. So thanks for your partnership with them to make this something for the entire community.
They're great to work with. I can't
Yeah.
say that enough. They've been very respectful and very good to work with.
Do you need a motion to put that on the consent agenda?
Please.
Well, let's not even make it on the because I think they might want to be here.
Sure.
But anyway, we'll put it on the agenda for Monday night.
I'll make that
Tom.
motion.
Second, Jim, questions, comments?
I know that they're running out of lots. Some of those that they have down there now are pretty wet. So cremations can go in there, I understand, but to bury a person and get the depth, it's awful wet.
I'd just like to make a comment too, if I may, Mr. Mayor. You know, I've been back in town, I think it's been 27, 28 years, 29, whatever it is. And this has been talked about then. And I will say that Oak Grove Cemetery is a historical place. You know, when we were talking, Tom, when you had brought it up about the Dell family and you had something from that family, and I said, I know where he's at. He's at Oak Grove Cemetery. And this is history that I think can carry on. As far as Buzz and Rod, I've worked with them for many years. Fabulous people. They care about the community. They want this to continue on. And what I see is some great foresight here is that they don't need it right at this moment, but they're planning ahead. And I think that's great thinking, and I would really support this.
Thanks, Al. Scott?
You may be able to answer this, so hopefully you
I'll do
can.
my
But
best.
in the conversations that I had with Steve Emerson in particular, he mentioned a land swap that apparently had been part of this deal and where this may have started some time ago. Maybe you could elaborate on that a bit.
I can. If can somebody pull up can you pull up a map? Guy, could you? Yes. So there's a parcel of land right along the river that is owned by Oak Grove Cemetery. It's low land, it's swampy land, it's no value to them or to the city. And so to get creative, they mentioned, you know, they'd be willing to do a land swap. That's an option. We don't have any use or need or any value for that property. And one of the reasons why we were hesitant to go in that direction is because if there's ever a time where there's a road improvement project or trees that need to be removed, we're talking about cost or assessments, all of a sudden the city bears more of that cost rather than if it's in somebody else's ownership. And they understood that there was no value to us in that land, just as there's no value to them in that land. But we can certainly take it on if we want to, but that was the rationale, is we could accomplish this just by donating it rather than doing the land swap. And there's really no value to the city and the land that they had proposed that the city take on. So just to be pretty blunt about that, it's marshy, low land that's, I don't know if you could walk out there, quite frankly.
Well, when
I
it
know
was
exactly the parcel, so we'll
when it was mentioned, I was under the impression that that was the deal. And apparently, if there's a way that we can do this without that being a part of the deal, that's fine. I didn't realize
that was the
case.
initial proposal, and as we talked through that, and as we learned that it'd probably be more burdensome than favorable for the city to take on the other land, it was in our best interest to just give it to them or gift it to them without the land swap. So, guys, get close here. Yeah, that's the parcel there. So, for reference, this is, it turns into Main Street, but it's Mount Faith Avenue, Mount Faith. Yep. This line here is the road, no, this is the road going to the city shop. This is the launch, canoe launch.
Yep.
It's called the Rock in this area. So this parcel here, you can see it's all swampland. A few trees along the perimeter, otherwise it's very wet.
I don't think we want that land, right?
I don't think we have any use for it. Any staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no value to us.
The only thing I would see with it is there's trees on it that at some point are gonna have to be dealt with, so it's gonna end up costing us money. And in the end, we help them out with a lot of their tree removals anyway, so there's no benefit to the city owning it.
But if anybody feels strongly about it, that offer's on the table.
Any other questions? Thanks, Scott. We have a motion and a second to bring this to the council. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, same sign. Thank you, Andrew. And yeah, again, thank you to Buzz, Steve, and Rod for their partnership on this. That's all that we have to come before the council that I'm aware of. Lynn, do you have any announcements?
Other than the Oak Grove, is there anything that should not be on the consent agenda for Monday? Anything like that?
And then one comment, Your Honor. Councilmember Roofer asked to start a discussion on the topic of work hours for contractors on the weekends. And out of respect for the fact that we're springing that on you, we don't need to have that conversation today, but we'll put that on the next committee of the whole agenda if that's fine. So in about 2 weeks, we'll have a discussion about potentially amending the ordinances related to work hours on Saturday. For reference, I think we don't allow contractors to start till 9 a.m. on Saturday. And some have asked whether we can move that earlier in the day so projects can get started and use that day. So anyway, that's a discussion that'll be forthcoming. Just wanted to put that on your radar.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. And with that, we will be adjourned.
I just had to throw that.